All right, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Star Wars Mark of Balance. My name is Mark, and today I want to talk to you guys about the Star Wars slate for 2024. We have TV shows, video games, books, and possibly some movie trailers on the horizon for us in the new year. Now, due to the writers and actor strikes in Hollywood over the past year, the 2024 slate is a bit lighter than anticipated. We know that Andor Season 2 is no longer coming out next year. And I'm still a bit skeptical that all of these projects that I'm going to talk about today are actually going to release next year. But this is what's been reported in Lucasfilm and Disney's press junkets across the world that these will be releasing. But for the purpose of today's episode, I'm going to take these reports at face value. So let me quickly run through the Star Wars slate for 2024. We have The Acolyte, we have Skeleton Crew, Bad Batch, the third and final season, Tales of the Jedi Season 2, maybe. We have Star Wars Outlaws, the third-person open-world video game. And in the Lucasfilm publishing world, we have a couple more releases from the High Republic Phase 3. And I know there's a couple standalone novels as well that are planned to release next year. And of course, this isn't reported, but hopefully we get a movie trailer for one of the 3 announced Star Wars films in the next year. That would be really exciting, but not holding my breath on that one. Now, this is a really interesting lineup, and something that really stands out to me is the fact that none of these projects revolve around a known or a legacy character. Under Disney Star Wars, every year we've had a guarantee that we'd either be seeing someone like Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, Boba Fett in their own project, but this year we have all new IPs. I mean, I know Bad Batch has been a long-running series, but they aren't these standout characters that people would instantly recognize. And I think that's really exciting that these are all new IPs and we're going to see the Star Wars galaxy from new perspectives. That's something that I've always preached and advocated for. And this is the first year where I think we have a completely legacy character-free lineup. Now, we don't have definitive release dates for any of these series yet. I'm just going to take my best guess on when these will come out. Of course, I don't see them airing live-action TV shows at the same time, so Acolyte and Skeleton Crew will likely be spread out, maybe summer and fall releases. Bad Batch Season 3, they aired in spring of last year, so I would expect a spring release date for that. Tales of the Jedi can be anytime. Outlaws, the video game, I would expect to be at the end of next year, considering Ubisoft just released a game in December of this year. So no clue when any of this is releasing. And the other interesting thing is we don't have a trailer for any of these except Star Wars Outlaws, the video game. Acolyte and Skeleton Crew had trailers shown at Star Wars Celebration, and I only saw them through very poor quality video cameras on people's phone, but they basically got confiscated, so I only saw the clips for a little bit before they were taken down. But some people might see it as concerning that there aren't trailers for any of these things yet, but I do think there is a part of me that is happy that they didn't release these trailers 2 years in advance and then we'd never see the show until 2024. I do think it's a bit ridiculous that they aired all of these trailers at Celebration and still haven't released them. Like, they have the trailers and they're just kind of keeping them in a vault. So not sure when we're going to see these. Hopefully at the beginning of the year. I don't know if there's any big Disney conventions like D23 or anything along those lines where they would be sharing trailers, but yeah, it's a very interesting year of Star Wars coming up for us. So I want to dive into the first project. This is the project that was on my most anticipated list when it was announced, I think a year ago, and that is The Acolyte. This is a story that's going to take place in the High Republic era. You guys know I love the High Republic, and this is the first foray into the High Republic in the visual medium outside of Star Wars Jedi Survivor, which is a video game. So this is the first time the general public, at least I'm calling them the general public, is going to have exposure to this time period in Star Wars. To be fair, this is slated to happen at the end of the High Republic and kind of the beginning of the new era of Star Wars that The Phantom Menace takes place in and the prequels. But there's a couple things that get me really excited about this series and why it's my most anticipated. One, it's going to be a full cast of Force users. We're going to have a huge ensemble of both Jedi and potential Sith characters. It's even been reported that a Sith or dark side user will be one of the main characters of this series, which is really interesting and a new perspective in Star Wars. And you guys know I'm always looking for that when Star Wars has been a property for over 45 years. You have to tell new stories. But I think having a show centered around Force users from all walks of life is something that we really haven't seen in live action outside the prequel movies, but we didn't have much time with any other characters except Obi-Wan and Anakin. And the other thing, as I mentioned, is the fact that we might be seeing a dark side user in a main character role. I think this can be a slippery slope because Star Wars always has to convey a message of hope and teaching the right lesson of choosing the light side over the dark side, and maybe having a perspective of a dark side character could maybe skew that, but if done well, it could be extremely compelling. Oh, and I forgot that this series will be all practical. They're doing built sets. They're shooting on site, which is what Andor did, and we know how great Andor looks. And we've kind of come to realize the shortcomings of the volume. So I'm really excited to see how these sets and how all the practical effects look for the Acolyte, if Andor is any indication of the quality that we can expect. And back to the trailer that I saw through a terrible quality video camera. The trailer was one of the best trailers I've ever seen in Star Wars, and it was only like a 1-minute clip. It captured the tone. There were some great action sequences in it, and the music was fantastic. It was this new riff on the Force theme. So I need them to release that trailer in full, and I think that trailer will absolutely sell everyone on what this series could be. I do not know much about the showrunner, writer, director, Leslie Headland, but based on her interviews in Star Wars Celebration, I really was impressed with the way she talked about the IP, her connection to it, and I feel that if that passion comes through, the series will be great. So overall, looking forward to diving into the High Republic in the visual medium, seeing a whole cast of Force users, light and dark, diving into the morality and the introspection of the Force for both sides, and of course, some really cool lightsaber fights. So the next series I'm going to be discussing is Skeleton Crew, a series that I'm pretty sure was on my 2023 Star Wars slate last year when I was discussing what was supposed to come out this year, and we still have not seen any footage from this series. So I am very cautiously optimistic about the quality and what this series is going to deliver, but I do enjoy the concept of it. It's being tagged as a series that is a mix of Stranger Things and Star Wars and The Goonies. So we're going to be following this cast of kids being lost in space, and Jude Law is apparently a Force user that becomes a mentor for these kids and helps them on their journey. Again, we have no real information or visuals from the series except for some screen grabs and concept art. There have been rumors that the pirates that we saw in Mandalorian Season 3 will show up as the main antagonists in Skeleton Crew. Don't exactly know if I love that or not. Not saying the pirates were bad in Mandalorian Season 3, but I was hoping to maybe be something a little bit more explorative about the mysteries of the galaxy and less about the underworld of the galaxy with pirates. But again, these are rumors, so we have no idea. Apparently a trailer was shown. I think I saw maybe like a 5 or 6 second clip. Not saying it was a lot to go off of, but we know Jude Law is amazing. We know that he's really excited about this series. We know that the showrunner, John Watts, who directed all of the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, so we know he does understand that more childish humor and the interactions between kids, which I think is really important because a full cast of kid characters can go really good or really bad. So I'm hoping it's more closely aligned to the banter that we see in Stranger Things, in Spider-Man Homecoming, and that whole trilogy. And I think another piece of this is that they market it as a series that follows kids, but isn't necessarily for kids. Again, I'm taking that with a grain of salt because I feel like I've heard similar things in the past, and then we get pretty low quality Star Wars TV. But I think that would be really great to have these kids in very dangerous, life-threatening situations. No, I'm not a masochist. I'm just saying it would be really entertaining, just like Stranger Things is. Those kids are in danger, and I think that we should feel that danger in a galaxy far, far away. I think the ideas and the concept of this series has a lot of potential. Seeing the mysteries of the galaxy through the perspective of a cast of kids is something new and fresh. I think Jude Law is, of course, a great talent, and I'd love to see him in this mentor, father-like figure role. And I just wish we saw some footage from this already, but I'm expecting this series to likely come out in the summer. I think they'll end the year on Acolyte, But as I said in the intro, this series is essentially a ghost, and I feel like it's been on ice for a couple years, so cautiously optimistic about when this is coming out and what quality we're going to get. But that's what I got for you for Skeleton Crew, slated for 2024. The next series I'm going to be discussing is Bad Batch Season 3. It was announced that this is the final season of the Bad Batch. And for me, this is the season of Star Wars next year that I'm most confident in that it will deliver a consistent and great piece of Star Wars media. And this is totally coming off the back of a really good Season 2 where I felt like they focused up the story a lot more. I don't think it shook all of the issues that it had in Season 1 with tonal clashes and filler episodes, but it raised the stakes up to 11. It was reaching the level of quality that some of the Clone Wars arcs had, and I think it has a lot of huge implications for the broader Star Wars galaxy, especially with Palpatine's cloning program that we've seen mentioned in Mando and that we see in The Rise of Skywalker, which I don't exactly agree with, but they are planting the seeds really well as to how they are building up to a Force-sensitive clone program within the Imperial regime. The other factor is that based on how Season 2 ends and where our characters are, I'm trying not to spoil anything for people that haven't seen Bad Batch, but it really doesn't leave any room for filler-type episodes or episodes that clash with the very dark tone of this era in Star Wars between episodes 3 and 4 as the Empire rises to power. I think this will be a very focused and tight season. I wouldn't be surprised if it's only 10 to 12 episodes instead of the usual 16. I don't know if there's enough story to go 16, but if they do and it's all tonally and thematically consistent, I'm all for it. But I wouldn't be surprised if this is a shorter season than we're used to with the Bad Batch. And the last thing that makes me very confident about this season of the Bad Batch is that the show knows when it needs to end. A lot of shows continue to go even if the story doesn't need to be continued, but it takes a lot of guts and it takes a lot of planning and it takes a lot of confidence to say, hey, this is the story we want to tell and it's the right time to end it. So I can't wait to see the final season of The Bad Batch next year. Star Wars animation has always had a special place in my heart. It's been the most consistent form of Star Wars TV that we've had. And I think Bad Batch has been on the perfect upswing in quality throughout its 3-season run. So I expect nothing but greatness in Season 3. And I think it's going to hit me in the feels. I'm really looking forward to it. So keep Bad Batch Season 3 on your radar for 2024. The next show I'm going to talk about, again, is very heavily rumored. This is not confirmed at all, but a lot of news outlets are saying that it's likely coming out this year, and that is Tales of the Jedi Season 2. Now, Season 1 of Tales of the Jedi was a lot of highs and lows for me. I think the Count Dooku episodes reached some soaring highs, and I think the Ahsoka episodes, while they had some unique ideas and concepts, I think left a lot to be desired, especially the final episode where she faces off against the Inquisitor. But the beauty of Tales of the Jedi is that there's no specified structure to the series. In Season 1, we got 6 short episodes revolving around 2 Jedi, Count Dooku and Ahsoka. Who's to say that Season 2 focuses on 1 Jedi for 6 short episodes, or 1 Jedi for 3 longer episodes? We really don't have a specific structure, and I think that's really great because it gives the creators a lot of freedom to tell the stories that they need to tell in the time they need to tell it. So since we have no information or confirmation for this season of Tales of the Jedi, I'm just going to tell you what I would hope for out of the second season of Tales of the Jedi. I would love for them to adapt the Asajj Ventress and Quinlan Vos arc from the Clone Wars that was turned into a book because it was scrapped and Clone Wars was canceled. This arc follows Asajj Ventress and Quinlan Vos and their team up to assassinate Count Dooku for the Jedi Council. This arc is part love story, it's part tragedy, it's very dark, and it's this great exploration of the character of Asajj Ventress, who we started to get her redemption at the end of Clone Wars, but we didn't see it fully through. And I think she deserves to get this arc finally adapted in the Clone Wars style animation. I think it would be extremely cinematic. I love the book. It's called Dark Disciple if you want to pick it up and read it. It's fantastic, but the reason I'm pushing for it to be adapted is because it was already in early concept for Clone Wars before Clone Wars was canceled on Cartoon Network. They had concept art, they had early rendering footage for some of the episodes. So the foundation is there for them to build off. Now, of course, the only thing that clashes with Tales of the Jedi is the fact that this arc would probably require 4 or 5 episodes. And we know that Tales of the Jedi is kind of revolving around shorts. But as I mentioned in the beginning, there is no specified structure for Tales of the Jedi. So if they want to tell this story, they could just put it in this medium. And I think it would be perfect. I think people would absolutely adore it. And it made Asajj Ventress one of my favorite Star Wars characters ever. If they don't go that route and they stick to the format that they had in Season 1 of Tales of the Jedi, I'd love to see it revolve around Luke and Ben Solo. Luke specifically between episodes 5 and 6, where he goes from a Padawan to a very confident Jedi Master, or almost Jedi Master, in Return of the Jedi. I think there's a lot of story there. I believe it's 5 years of time. I think it would be really cool to see Luke go on these adventures and mature as a Jedi, something that we haven't seen. I know the comics cover it, but I don't follow the comics. I think that would be really compelling. And I think Ben Solo, it would tie really nicely if we see that time in Luke's life and then we transition to Ben Solo early at the Jedi Academy and the new Jedi Temple that Luke builds and unfortunately gets destroyed by Ben before The Force Awakens. I think there would be a nice through line between those two. It would give us a little bit more insight into Ben's childhood, and it would build out Luke Skywalker without having to recast Mark Hamill, which I know a lot of people are still talking about. I personally hate and don't think they should touch those legacy characters, but I think animation would be a great way to tell more Luke stories without affecting the original trilogy. I know you guys are probably shocked that I just recommended that they do something with the sequels, but the sequels haven't gotten really anything in animation except for Resistance, and we know how that turned out. And I think Ben Solo is the strongest part of the sequel, so I think it would be very much earned that he would get a Tales of the Jedi trio of episodes. But I'd be curious to see what you guys would want to see. I mean, there's so many Jedi out there that we don't know a lot about. We may have gotten only like one-off episode in the Clone Wars about them, so this would be a great way to explore so many different Jedi in the world. So that concludes the 2024 TV show slate for Star Wars. As I said, a very interesting slate, a very new and fresh take for Star Wars. So I'm really excited for a lot of these. I think I'm cautiously optimistic about the release dates of some of them and the quality of some. But I think overall, I am looking forward to the fact that these are all very different from what we've typically got from Disney Star Wars. Now I want to transition to Star Wars Outlaws, the open world third-person shooter video game being produced by Ubisoft Massive. It takes place between episodes 5 and 6 at the height of the galactic civil war between the Rebellion and the Empire, and is really going to focus on the underworld of Star Wars, something that we haven't been able to really dive into in Star Wars video games, and we've only touched the surface of a lot with these TV shows that we've gotten. So I think this is a really new, unique, and fresh take in the Star Wars galaxy. I think it gives a lot of freedom to the story that they can tell because it hasn't been tapped into a lot. We have a cast of new characters, including a repurposed commander droid that's so cool because he has a trench coat, and droids don't usually wear trench coats, so him wearing a trench coat is really cool. We have the promise of seamless travel between worlds, something that Starfield didn't even get right. And we have the promise of this really cool bounty/karma system for our main character and how she interacts with the different crime syndicates, whether it's the Pikes or the Hutts or the new ones that they've mentioned. I think Crimson Sun will also be in there. And I think that opens a lot of really cool gameplay possibilities where you can double cross one, you can get in close with Jabba the Hutt, and maybe that helps you travel between worlds easier, or the Pikes will help you with spice and cartel trafficking so that you can make more money quicker, but maybe it raises your wanted level with the Empire. I just hope Ubisoft can deliver in this aspect. I'm not sure if there's been any confirmation on how many worlds there will be in this game, but you guys know I'm always a quality over quantity person. I'd rather have 3 or 4 really dense and interesting worlds than 50 very bare bones basic worlds with not much to do on them. And this quality over quantity concept is my main apprehension coming into this game because it is produced by Ubisoft. And Ubisoft has become notorious over the years for having very beautiful, huge open worlds, but they're very shallow and there's not much depth to the gameplay as compared to other open worlds like Red Dead Redemption 2 or Ghost of Tsushima. And the promise of seamless travel is not something that's very easy to accomplish, and I'm hoping that the new PS5 hardware is able to accommodate them in this bold claim that they're making. Now, a really good heat check that we recently got for what Ubisoft Massive can deliver is the fact that they just released Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, an open world video game set in James Cameron's Avatar universe. And the reviews are pretty solid. I think a lot of the reviews kind of echo what I mentioned about Ubisoft earlier. The fact that the worlds are beautiful, they look great, but are a bit shallow when it comes to gameplay. And the fact that they're releasing this big of a game this year and they have planned DLC for it over the next couple years makes me a bit scared about how the resources are being used for Star Wars Outlaws and Avatar at the same time at the same studio, because these are two big, ambitious games. So there's some apprehension there. The positives that I'm hearing about Avatar Frontiers of Pandora is the sound design and the immersion of exploring the world. And I think that's huge for Star Wars. Obviously, sound design is a key pillar of Star Wars, from the blasters to the ships to the speeders to the droids to the environments. That's all really important for immersing us in the Star Wars galaxy. So that's really great to hear that sound design is one of the big takeaways from Avatar. And to my knowledge, I don't think there was many bugs in Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, so I do think the game ran smoothly, which is another big plus for Outlaws, that Ubisoft can deliver a game that works and isn't filled with bugs and frame rate drops, which unfortunately we saw with Star Wars Jedi Survivor at launch, and I think still there are some massive frame rate drops in the open worlds for Survivor. So there are some positives to take away from the recent release from Ubisoft Massive, but I am hoping that they trim the fat and have a very deep, immersive open world game with a compelling story. That was the other thing that was a negative with Avatar's Frontiers of Pandora. The story apparently was very bare bones and basic, hoping that the story that we get here of someone trying to pay off their bounty, make their way in the galaxy with their little crew of a droid and this little cute alien of some sort is cool. And her interactions with the Empire, the Pikes, the Hutts, and other crime syndicates is compelling. I think the combat has a lot of cool potential for gadgets, different weapons, modified weapons, kind of like Ezra Bridger's lightsaber that also shoots blasters. I think there would be a really cool way that they could interact with different weapons coming together. Hopefully there's some melee combat so you could use like an electro stab, like from a Magna Guard, or something along those lines. Now, with all that being said, this game is slated to release next year. I am personally under the impression that this will probably get delayed to early 2025. And by all means, take all the time you need. I'd rather you not rush out a product, release it in a great state, and let us enjoy it from the first day and not have to wait for it to get better. So expect a fall release for this, fall-winter release of next year, hopefully with no delays. So the final thing I want to discuss in the visual medium is the potential for a Star Wars movie trailer next year. We had 3 movies announced at Star Wars Celebration last year: Dave Filoni's Mandoverse movie, Rey's movie, and a Dawn of the Jedi movie from James Mangold. We are told that Rey's movie is beginning production in April, I think. Of course, that was delayed because the writers and actors striked last year. So I'm not really sure about the cycles of filming and when a trailer is typically released after filming. So it might be a bit ambitious to have filming in April and have a trailer by the end of the year, which would be really cool because that would be the first Star Wars movie trailer we've gotten in almost 5 years. The last Star Wars movie trailer we got was Rise of Skywalker, which came out in 2019. That is absolutely crazy to say. A part of me loves that we haven't released a Star Wars movie in over 5 years, so there's a lot of anticipation and excitement for the first trailer to see the next Star Wars movie, because there's nothing like a Star Wars movie in the theaters, even if it's not that great. I expect this trailer, if it is going to be released next year, it will be from the Rey movie, and it's going to be met with very divisive responses. You know, there will be a lot of people that hate it because it's connected to the sequels and Rey as a character. There will be a lot of people that are excited because they really like the sequels, and then there will be those people in the middle who are like, I like Star Wars, but it's kind of lost me. So this trailer has to really hook them back in and say, hey, even if you haven't followed Star Wars over the past couple of years, this is a reset. This is something new. This is something that anyone can sit down to watch. So I'm really hoping for that. I think if we do get a trailer at the end of the year, it'll be a more tonal trailer, a lot of wide shots, really focusing on the music and maybe a voiceover. And if it is the Rey film, I definitely expect Rey not to be the main character. I think she's going to be more of a mentor in this role, and it'll be focusing on the next generation of Jedi or something along those lines. But I do think it would be smart if they don't really stick closely to what happened with the sequels. I think that would be smart. So those are my thoughts on a trailer next year for a movie. Not sure if it'll even happen, but there's a possibility. The other issue is that the next Star Wars Celebration is in Japan in 2025, and that would likely be the place that they would premiere a Star Wars movie trailer instead of just randomly or at D23. So that's another thing working against us there. But I had to mention on this because you never know. So I'll wrap up really quickly with the High Republic and Phase 3 books releasing next year. We have Defy the Storm, Temptation of the Force, and Beware the Nameless. Really cool cover art for some of these that has been released so far. I think the Phase 3 is off to a really good start. I think the first book was a bit slow. I think it was a bit repetitive, but I am looking forward to see how this story concludes because Phase 3 is the final phase of the High Republic. And I know there's a lot of standalone novels planned. I think there's a Mace Windu standalone canon novel planned for next year. Cole was telling me about, a very good friend of the podcast. And I'm sure there's plenty others that'll be coming out. So looking forward to those as well. But I had to give a spotlight to Star Wars books because I think they're extremely consistent in their quality of storytelling. But yeah, that is going to conclude today's episode on Star Wars in 2024. Hopefully, if you didn't know about some of these projects, I was able to enlighten you. If you did know about these projects and maybe just didn't know they were coming out next year, that's also exciting. And if you were interested in my takes and what I was looking for in these projects, thank you for being interested in what I have to say. So if you don't already follow me on Instagram, follow me at @star_wars_mark of balance. If you did enjoy this episode, please leave me a rating on whatever streaming service you are listening to this podcast on. Really appreciate that. Really helps me out. And as always, stay safe, stay healthy, and may the Force be with you. Peace.